What is up, Retromaniacs? Welcome to the Retro Card Chat Podcast. My name is Mike, and I am from Mike's Retro Trading Cards. And I'm joined by two men that have been occupying the upper right-hand corner and the lower third of my screen for the last 100 episodes. They are your friends and mine, Joe Day and EP Eric Pahalik. How you doing, guys?
What is up, boys?
We are getting together here for a special occasion. We are going to reintroduce episode 1 of this fantastic podcast that has now been running 100 episodes. So we thought this would be funny to go back and let all of you see just how bad we were when I know you might still be thinking we are now, but trust me.
Yeah.
We're even worse back in episode 1. But we gave out all kinds of great information.
We did.
This upcoming podcast.
Yeah. We sound very, very smart because we need to. We reference this thing all the time. So the fact that this hasn't gone over 1,000 views when we put it out because we keep referencing it over the last 100 episodes, I'm kind of shocked. So let's get this sucker. If we get to 1,000 views, EP and I shave our heads.
Yes. I did not agree to this.
1,000 views, we will shave our heads on the channel for sure.
There you go.
Joking aside, though, the angles not great.
I was gonna say,
like this angle way better.
I was gonna say, I'm glad I stopped using my phone and I'm started doing a way better job with how I try to present myself. And yeah, it's gonna be some fun stuff for you guys. If you haven't gone back and watched episode 1, like we've recommended multiple times. If you haven't gone back and done that, you're gonna be in for a treat. I think.
Yeah, this is your chance right here, and make sure you take notes. You get your notebook out. I'll wait a second to start this video. You go get your notebook and you take notes because there will be a test because we reference this all the time. And you just write down all the stuff we were right about. So you'll be amazed.
And if you get a perfect score on the test, EP will shave his
head. He will.
On the show.
Just quick, how many times do you think we've said episode 1? Look back in episode 1 or something to that effect on the actual podcast.
Enough for it to have become a drinking game on
I was
the
just going to
episode,
say, if this was a drinking game, none of us would have livers. Like, legit. Like, it's crazy how often we reference it. But I will say this before we kick to it. All of it is it always seems like it is the perfect moment to reference it. There is so much stuff going on in the hobby over the last 100 episodes, over the last 2 years, that when you look back, you're like, we were talking about this 100 episodes ago. So I think it is really still, there's a lot of salient points in there, I would say.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoy this video. Let us know in the comments and enjoy. What is up, Retro Maniacs? Welcome to the first episode of Mike's Retro Card Chat, where the retro guys chat about cards. I'm Mike, and of course, I'm joined by fellow contributors Joe Day and Eric Pahalik, otherwise known as EP. What's up, guys?
What is up, Mike? I'm ready to go. I'm cracking one open.
Oh, I'm ready too. It's afternoon on my day off, so.
Cheers, boys.
I don't have anything, but you guys enjoy.
Well, you have to drive the car, Mike. We're just
This is true. Yes, this is true. Well, today's episode, we're going to focus on a recent interview with CEO of Fanatics, Michael Rubin. Of course, Fanatics is taking over all the card licensing in a couple of years. Recently bought Topps, so they're going to be the player in the card industry pretty soon. And it was a pretty interesting, in-depth interview with some of the stuff he said there. I think gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what their plans are for the future. And one of the biggest things I got out of it personally was his talk about how much he wants to grow the card market. He's talking about, 10x, 20x, 30x times growth. And that was one of the major overarching parts of the whole interview was how much he wants to grow it. So what do you think about that, Joe?
Well, first off, I am a Bill Simmons stan. That's what the kids call it, right? So I can listen to him interview anyone. Got to get that out of the way. But
I will say with the card industry, it almost feels like a band that you really like and no one really knows about. And then when it starts getting popular, you're like, oh man, I liked it when no one knew about this band or knew about their song. So when he was talking about expanding the card industry, I totally agree it needs to happen. But part of me thinks I kind of like that it's our thing. It's something that small group of people have and they can hold on to, and people think it's kind of weird, kind of like fantasy football was when we all first started that. Like in the mid 90s, everyone thought you were a big nerd for fantasy football, and now
we are.
But now so I like the direction he's going, and we'll talk, I'm sure, more detail, but I like the general direction that he's thinking about going to expand it. But part of me is kind of wishing we kind of kept it for ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. And one of the things I really found surprising was he said that the card industry is really only about 5 million collectors. You know, you go on Twitter, you go on YouTube, it really feels like it's a bigger industry than that. But their numbers were saying about 5 million, whereas Fanatics have 100 million followers alone. So right there, they're 20 times bigger than the actual card market. And one of the things he was talking about is how the card market, they don't do any marketing. None of the card companies have ever marketed. Go ahead, AP.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, that was the biggest takeaway I think I took from the entire thing. He said they spend like 1% of their budget on marketing or something.
Yeah.
Like wild.
I know,
like,
it's crazy.
How can you do that as a business? Like just blows my mind. If they had spent 10%, imagine where the cards might be right now compared to where they are.
And I thought about it too. I'm thinking, I've never seen a commercial about cards on TV. I've never seen, I watch a lot of breaks. I watch a lot of reveals, everything card related on YouTube. Never have seen a card related commercial.
Exactly. Yeah.
During football season, you don't see football cards being advertised. It's in 2022, it's the craziest word of mouth industry I think that's ever been around, because no one shows anything to advertise their products. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, that's really crazy. Go ahead.
The three of us have lived in Pennsylvania like all of our lives, right? And like Tops used to be located in Duryea. Like, but I never knew that until just a few years ago. Like Duryea, Pennsylvania, like it's not like down the street from us, but I mean still, and like just they don't like. It just seems odd that we wouldn't, as people that were into cards, would not have known that,
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like when you think about it, there is no marketing being done, and like you wonder why the companies are pacified with just selling cards to the people that want to buy them right now. I think one of the big points that he made that I caught during the interview, and it made a lot of sense to me, was that the card companies really kind of got lucky. They lucked into this big swell in the market because of the pandemic. I mean, it really wasn't anything they did that made the card market come back. It was people being stuck at home and starting to dig through their old cards and stuff that made the card market come back. They didn't do anything. They got lucky.
I mean, the three of us are a perfect example. I mean, EP probably has collected over the last, since the card shop closed, probably has collected more than we have. But just in general, I mean, if not for the pandemic and the groundswell of people getting back into it, I don't think I'd be in it. I don't think you'd be in it, Mike. And
yeah, definitely not.
And you have to wonder, I mean, if that didn't happen, if the pandemic, and Rubin's he was honest when he said this. He's like, the pandemic for Fanatics was actually kind of good for us.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to think of, but you imagine how different would cards be if there wasn't a pandemic? Would Panini be charging tens of thousands of dollars for a case of cards?
Yeah, no way.
I mean,
no way.
It's crazy.
It really is. One of the things he was talking about in terms of growing the market, which is a little scary to me, is the talk of influencers. He was talking about there only being about 5 major influencers in the card market, and sounds to me a little bit like his plans are to bring more people in to do that. Yeah. I mean, I'm I'm probably out of the target market for a lot of the influencers. So maybe that's why I feel like I do. But what do you think, EP? I mean, that's I don't know. I'm not really sure about that.
I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, that's what marketing kind of is today. And I feel like as long as one of the things that really got me is like, I'm a journalist in the real world. And one of the things that I love is when I go into a room to a meeting and I'm everybody else is smarter than me. Like I'm the dumbest person in the room. And this guy, he said, I never graduated college. He said that, but you could tell that he was very smart about what he was doing and really understood his stuff. I'm going to trust in him, that he is going to make the right call in this. That's kind of where marketing is right now in a lot of ways. So I'm just that's a wait and see kind of thing for me.
Well, EP's been trying to push us into TikTok since he started.
Yeah.
So he would be the expert. I will say it depends on what kind of influencers you're talking about, right? So are we talking about TikTok, Instagram, those type of influencers? That's one thing. I think there are influencers like, for better or worse, Drake, right? He bought tens of thousands, $100,000 worth of flawless basketball.
I think it was a couple 100,000.
Was it a couple 100,000? Yeah. I mean, so he would be considered a big name influencer. Someone like AJ Dillon, which sounds silly. He's actually a card collector. I want someone. There was a pitcher for the Royals, I think it was, who has a YouTube channel about card collecting. So
Phil Hughes, a former Yankee, does it. Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, those type of influencers I don't have a problem with. But you're right, Mike. You and I, and probably EP to a certain extent, even though he's the TikTok guy, we're not the target audience for influencers. It's for the younger generation of card collectors coming up. But if we found out Peyton Manning collected cards, that'd be awesome. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
But I want real ones, not fake ones. Like, we're going to pay you money to be an influencer.
Yeah.
I want someone who actually cares about collecting cards.
That's something I really didn't think about too. Like I know, like we know as fantasy football players, it's really cool when you see those players come out and say, "Oh yeah, I play and my team won or lost or something." And I wasn't really thinking that way. I'm thinking like the celebrities and people not necessarily involved with sports, but like they have players that collect. I'm sure there are a lot of players out there that collect cards. Like
AJ Dillon is not the only person collecting cards. I'll tell you that.
Like, I've seen people on Twitter like showing sales they had on eBay to people who were current players and stuff like that. So you're right. I think that's really cool. That'd be a really cool direction to go, so people can go and, not only does this guy play and hit dingers, he also collects cards like I do. So I'm never going to hit dingers, but we can share the same interest of, I had my day, but I'm a little too old now. But yeah, we share that same interest. But one of the cool things I did think he talked about in terms of marketing was, he was talking about the national. He and Bill Simmons were both talking about that and saying about how you go to the card show and it's the same as it was 10 years ago, as 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There's nothing different. Every card show you walk into looks exactly the same. The characters are exactly the same. The dealers look exactly the same. And, he balanced that and like compared it to the Comic-Con and like how they make that such a big experience and how much fun the companies have, the vendors have, the people that go have, and how he likes that idea and wants to try to incorporate that into card shows and maybe have, not just one big card show a year, have it in multiple cities around the country, all different times of the year. I think that sounds really exciting.
Love it. I love it.
So the one thing I will say about, he did mention, Comic-Con is huge and it's this big event. And I agree, the National should be bigger. And I think if you're bringing in younger collectors, they're going to want something kind of like Comic-Con. The one distinction I think should be made though is Comic-Con is once a year. It's in San Diego. The big one's in San Diego, just like the National. They kind of go between a few cities, but the big one's in San Diego, but there are smaller ones that are a little bit bigger than card shows. But apparently, and I'm not a card show guy, we're going to our first National this year, but apparently like Culture Collision happened in Atlanta, and that was a big deal. There was one out in Vegas that was kind of big. There's one in Arizona, I think this weekend people are posting about on Twitter. So there are other card shows, but I do think the idea of making a consistent message in those card shows, kind of having an upgraded version, I think is the direction that they need to start looking at.
Yeah, that'd definitely be cool.
Who pays for it and who is in charge of overseeing it? I mean, Rubin's is a guy who owns a company. Is he also going to be the guy who funds this upgraded card show, or the person that shapes it? You know, you can't have an idea without a solution. And I think that's kind of, and I, like EP said, I kind of trust in him too to do the right thing, but you need that next, you gave me this part, now give me the next part.
And he talked too about how his deal with the different sports leagues is different than the other card companies had. Like, they were basically just licensing the product, and the sports leagues were only making a small amount of money off of the sales of cards, whereas like Panini's making a ton of money. So they're into revenue sharing with some of these, some of the players unions and the leagues that, you know, those type of things benefit everybody. So they have a ton of money. He has a ton of money. They can all work together to set this stuff up and have it around the country. And, you know, all of them benefit from it. And I think that's one of the things that I got out of the interview too, was how different that was than like the normal structure like it was now.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like, I didn't really think about the connection that Fanatics already had with these groups, even though, I mean, obviously it was obviously there, but I didn't think about the kind of benefits it'll have for the overall, like the card, like all the card companies, well, Tops, I guess. But my thinking on the turning things into like a Comic-Con, or turning all shows into like Comic-Cons, I mean, just having even a minor Tops presence, like a Tops and Fanatics booth at even a smaller show, is going to kind of transform that and make it into a little bit of a bigger deal. And that in turn should bring in more people and bring in more vendors and that sort of stuff, I think. And I don't think it's going to be quite Comic-Con for everyone, but I really think if they just did a little bit, like I was at a show just this past, or not today, but last weekend here locally. And, you know, it was an awesome show. There were a lot of tables there, a lot of dealers, but it was all just dealers and people there to buy stuff. You put one or two other things in there that aren't just dealers, then all of a sudden you start attracting a different kind of crowd and a bigger crowd. And I think that's kind of, in my mind, that's what I think he's visioning, is just kind of like punching these up just a little bit to kind of like lift up all of them. And then the bigger ones, obviously, like the Dallas one and the National, get really big.
Yeah.
And then maybe even do a road show where you have people signing autographs or something. Like, you don't have the same folks, but you're in central Pennsylvania, right? So maybe you have Steelers or Eagles come in, and that's part of the deal that they have with Fanatics, that they have to show up at certain card shows or X amount of card shows a year. If you're going to get that money for signing those stickers, maybe you have to go to a card show and greet some folks.
And that's where having like the relationship with having the revenue sharing with the actual players unions and stuff comes into play too. Like, I think, you know, that gives them incentive to go do this stuff because all of them can benefit financially from it. And one of the things, you know, they didn't really talk about this, but, you know, back when I had the shop and I had comics, the comic book companies did a lot of co-marketing with the shops. Like, you could take out ads. Like, if I took out an ad in the paper and advertised Marvel comics, Marvel would pay like half of that ad. And, you remember all the different like promotional stuff they sent and like, you know, decorative stuff for the store. So like, I feel like there's a lot more that the card companies could do like that they could use the comic book industry as kind of their guide for the right way to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think he's one of those guys he just seems to soak up all this. He seems interested in hearing what people think. And, you know, we could do a whole video on the problem I have with Panini and how they handle things. But
we don't have enough time for that.
Right. He seems like someone sticker autographs in $2,000 boxes of cards. Ridiculous. I digress. But
well, he also brought up the point too about how like you don't really stop to realize that you don't know if the player's signing that.
Right.
Like they're sending them stickers to sign. They don't have people there authenticating them. They're saying, yeah, they're real because the player said they're real. But like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he alluded to the fact that, the way autographs are done really isn't the best way to do it. And
Yellow Ball had a teammate sign his. I guarantee you.
Yeah. I
that
mean,
was his name signing his cards.
How do you know? You're asking somebody to sign 2,000 little stickers. They're not going to be too busy. Maybe
I think it's
or 10,000. Yeah, exactly.
He
So
those stickers for years.
Yeah.
I think they get an initial 10,000 stickers signed, and then you'll see a 5th-year LaMelo Ball auto. Guess what? He signed that his rookie year.
Yeah.
So, and the other part of that that's really kind of annoying is that. So you have these sticker autographs in these super high-end products. This is not a pandemic thing. People try and say, oh, it's because of the pandemic. There are Josh Allen sticker autos in Prism from 2018. So it's not a pandemic thing. They've been doing this for years. And if Rubin is as smart as I think we're giving him credit for, he needs to look at some of the products and how Panini's doing things. And, to a certain extent, some of the other, tops currently, and really try and listen to the collectors and really try and figure out how to fix some of the bigger issues that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was interesting listening to some of his different business plans and stuff. I know I went to the local card shop last week and I was talking to the guy that owns it there, John, the owner of the shop. And he was saying to me that his distributor was telling him that he thought that Topps was going to be selling direct to the hobby shops and the card shop owners now. Said that they really seem like they're trying to cut out the distributors. And then during this interview, like Michael Rubin pretty much confirmed the same thing. Like he didn't like all the steps along the way, all the different middlemen. Like you had to go, they're making the cards, they're sending them to a distributor, they send them to a card shop who sells them to a reseller who sells them to somebody on eBay. And he really wants to cut a lot of that out of there. So it sounds to me like their business plan is going to be a lot of direct to consumer and direct to hobby shops.
That sounds like, it sounds good and sounds like it should lead to better prices for the end user, right?
Oh yeah.
But I wonder if that's going to be the case. Thinking about where the prices are right now for a box of cards is like, even if you get stuff direct off of some of the card company websites, they're still astronomical. So how much is that going to benefit us, do you think?
But Panini is way worse than Topps with that. Like Panini's products are $1,000 and $10,000 and $3,000. Topps isn't really putting out much like that. Yeah, they have like, I'm a big wrestling card fan. They had the Transcendent, and that wasn't for me. I would have loved to have been able to spend, what was it, like $30K on a
that was like that was a breaker product more than a.
Yeah, it is. But like Topps for the most part isn't anywhere near as bad as Panini, I don't think.
And I will say, I think the last part of that chain, right? The producers, distributors, the last part of that chain is still going to happen. There's still going to be people buying stuff directly from Fanatics, directly from Topps, and they're going to eBay it. That part is not going to die because unless Fanatics is just churning out products like they would jerseys and hats, there needs to be a finite amount of product available. Anytime there's a finite amount of product, that means that someone towards the end of the process is going to buy it up and put it on eBay. So, I don't think he can get rid of that part. He can get rid of the distributors, though. MJ Holdings or whatever that sells to Walmart.
Yeah.
So he can get rid of that part of the problem, but I don't think he's going to be able to handle, unless they're going to churn out cards like 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookies, which they can't be doing because the whole point of this product is that it needs to be a finite resource so they gain value. But that end user part is still I think people are still going to have more expensive cards because they have to go through a third party selling on eBay. Hopefully the starting price isn't so bad like Topps versus Panini,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that, that kind of ties into the other thing I wanted to talk about. He talked about wanting to become a one-stop shop for the collector, for the sports fan, basically, not just a card collector, but he wants you to be able to watch a game and buy a jersey and buy a card. But you were the one, Joe, that kind of brought this up to me. Some of the little tidbits in there. He talked about wanting to be a place that you can buy your cards from, a place where you can store your cards in a vault, a place where you can send your cards to a break room to have you buy a box of cards and they open them for you and store them for you or send them to you. And the big one that stood out too was get them graded. And he also talked about having a marketplace. So like he's really, whether or not he's able to do all this stuff, like he seems to have very grandiose plans, but it sounds like he's trying to make a system where, Joe, you can buy a card, you can have somebody open it for you, you can see what you get out of it, you can get it graded, you can put it in your vault, and then you can sell it right there and never even have to touch the card if you don't want to.
So that's one of the things that actually I said, when we were texting about this before, that's one of the things that actually makes me nervous. Right. So I'm cool that, like, in theory, awesome. Right. You don't even have to, which, by the way, I should turn my camera around and show you the display of cards I have, because I think they're little pieces of art. Right. I can't imagine buying a box of cards, having someone else break it, then having them send it to someone to grade, and then having them put it in a vault so I can send. That's an investor thing. That's not a collector thing. That's an investor thing. I like it in theory. My issue becomes, I don't want my cards graded by the company I bought them from. And I'm sure in future videos we'll talk about different grading companies and things like that. I just don't feel comfortable thinking that someone else is opening up a pack, I'm not even looking at the card, and they're going to send it to Fanatics. If Fanatics comes back with, that's a Fanatics 8, or whoever company they use, that's a Fanatics 8, then I'm going to be a little annoyed that I literally never touched the card. It came out of a pack, and Fanatics is telling me an 8.
You're like, why is it an 8? Yeah.
Why is
Did
it
somebody
8?
drop it? Did he ding the corner when he put it in a soft sleeve? Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's the converse part of that is, what if they start churning out 10s? Because people don't care about the actual card anymore.
No, people would be happy by that. Yeah.
On the top, and that's
they do. Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, just got pulled from a pack. It's a 10, and they just slap the 10 on there. I'm like, I don't. As a collector who looks at a card and can see an 8 that looks better than a 9, and I'm going to buy that 8. I don't want just a 10 with a 10 label. I want a 10 with a 10.
Isn't there already a company that does that?
That's another video. That's a new movie, man. That's a whole other thing.
So EP, what do you think? You're going to buy a box of cards and have somebody else open it for you?
I have never bought into a break, and I don't think I ever will. I love, if I'm going to get a box of cards, I want to open it myself. I want to get it graded myself. I think I agree with Joe where I like the concept of it, and I think it's something that some people are going to want to do and like take advantage of. It's not for me, but I mean, like I also think the grading part of it needs to be optional. Like it can't just say, oh, everything we have, everything over this amount of money, we're going to grade for you. Like it's got to make sure, like, don't do that for my cards.
And I wouldn't mind them. Well, I was going to say I wouldn't mind them authenticating things, but if they're coming straight from the company, they better be authentic.
They better be authentic.
And like how much on top, like what EP was alluding to, how much on top is that grading going to be? Am I saving money? Because I'm a big fan of saving money. I'm one of the cheapest people here. I'm a big fan of that. But how much more over what I paid for the box am I now? It kind of reminds me of this will probably get cut from the video because it's such a deep cut. But did you guys ever have to read The Jungle when you were kids?
No. If I would have had to read something, I wouldn't have read it anyway. So
I'm familiar with it, though.
It was it was set in Chicago. It was a meat packing company, and everyone who lived there pretty much, or everyone that worked there pretty much lived on the premises. They had to buy from their store. They had to get food from the company store. They had to get clothes from the company and things like that. I'm kind of worried that that's kind of what we're turning into, right? So this is the jungle for Fanatics where, okay, you buy a box of cards from Fanatics, they open it for you, they grade it for you, they store it for you, they do all these things, and you're putting just money, and you don't have any autonomy to decide what you want to do with cards because it's this constant chain that they're running. I don't know.
Yeah, and I that's a legit concern, I think. Go ahead.
I think that Bill Simmons also was kind of cautioning him. He was talking about how ESPN, when he was at ESPN, and they were getting big, and they were like just thinking about how they can expand, and that was one of the talks. Like he was like, whoa, like you could tell he was a little concerned about what he was talking about it being just going too big.
Oh yeah.
And the bottom line is for people like us, the collectors, like we just want them to be really good at making tops, like to make sure the Topps cards are really good. Give us game worn jerseys, like that's all this other stuff is great, but just give us what we want. Give us these things, right?
I'm nervous about so EP opened up a good point. I'm very nervous.
Fanatics has a lot of jerseys.
I'm very nervous about how Fanatics is going to handle jerseys. Is Justin Herbert going to walk into one of their stores and just hold his hands out and touch all these jerseys, and all of a sudden they're player worn? I want to know that they're game worn. And it's
player used,
event worn, all that stuff, which is mind blowing. That those are more expensive than a Jerry Rice game used jersey. That they give you the date when it was used.
Makes no sense.
Makes no
sense whatsoever.
But that makes me a little nervous that they're going to be doing things like that because they have so much product there. They're known as hats and jerseys and apparel and things like that. I'm very nervous on how that's going to shake out because Panini has done a disservice, a massive disservice to collectors with a lot of their products.
It's a joke to even call them memorabilia cards. It's not a memorabilia. It's not a relic. It's not a relic. Like nobody had anything to do with that. You're cutting up a piece of jersey that nobody ever touched, nobody ever wore. It's just a piece of jersey card.
I get it for rookies. If you're going to put a product out before the season, but if you're putting Prism out 6 months after the season took place and you can get game used materials, absolutely ridiculous. And I know that sounds like a rant on Panini. It's more of a warning to Fanatics. You need to do it this way. You need to have player used in games or in the rookie, what do they call them? The rookie premiere photo shoots and things like that.
Photo shoots, yeah.
That's fine if that product's coming out in August. But if that product's coming out the following March, they better be game used materials.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, don't you think it kind of has to go back to that? I feel like if he's worried about the authenticity of autographs and, he said he heard from a lot of people that they want the cards to remain scarce and have value, that you got to think that somewhere along the So you have to think somewhere along the line, he probably heard, let's get back to game use stuff. Like I'm not a big fan of all the game use stuff because I think some of the older stuff really should remain intact. But, the guys are wearing how many jerseys a game now. So I don't think it's a big deal with the newer stuff. And they should easily be able to do that.
So I'm actually kind of upset that Fanatics is not in charge right now because for the 2022 draft class, I'm a big Kenny Pickett guy. And I'm going to have to buy.
Doesn't he have really little hands?
Very small. Apparently mine are just the same. I thought I had small hands.
Did you guys see the picture, though, of him holding the football and, like, the coaches all looking around like, it was ridiculous.
My favorite part of that whole thing is they're like, I don't know how he's going to play in tough weather.
I know.
That's crazy. I saw snow today in Pittsburgh. He can play in tough weather.
Yeah.
I digress. But I'm a big Kenny.
Jamar Chase can't catch, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy Panini stuff, and it pains me to say I'm going to buy Panini stuff when Kenny Pickett comes out, because the cards look cool. Some of them do, but I know that jersey that you're going to show me rock the Panther is not real. I know Kenny Pickett has no idea that jersey exists. So it kind of bums me out that I'm going to be spending probably good money on a top three quarterback or so, however it shakes out. And I'm going to have to spend money on cards that I know are authentic. I mean, sure. Yeah, it's an authentic jersey, but he never touched it. So I'm kind of hoping Fanatics, with the deals that they put together with the Players Association and things like that, it's, hey, we're paying you a lot of money. Put this jersey on. Or we're paying you a lot of money. Give me your jersey from preseason game 3. Who cares if you wore it,
Right. Yep.
So that's kind of where I land on that. You can't have this fake stuff anymore. You can't have sticker autos.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up. Pretty good chat for our first little.
The one thing I do want to add to this is we were talking about marketing. And I kind of wish I mentioned it earlier, but another YouTube content creator brought this up, and I think it's actually a really good point. I wish I remember who it was, but they did mention that how cool would it be when Sunday Night Football comes on and it's the players saying their names for their positions, cards. It shows their cards.
I think they talked about that in the podcast.
They talk about it. Okay, so
they did.
And Simmons. So
yeah,
that's the type of marketing I think would be awesome.
Oh yeah,
and you don't even need to pay for the commercial, because the NFL now has a vested financial interest in showing things like that. I think it would be really cool. So that
would be cool
from a marketing perspective. It wouldn't even cost them anything, and they could really, really show off. Imagine seeing Tom Brady's Bowman Chrome, since they own Topps, right? Showing his Bowman Chrome rookie card when he says Tom Brady from Michigan. I think that would be awesome.
And he's playing at 55 years old.
He'll be 55?
Yeah. 70.
He's the only player who's older than me still in the NFL, so I need him to stay on as long as possible.
Yeah, well, maybe Michael Rubin will see this and he'll offer you a position and the director of marketing. I don't know.
Right.
Stranger things have happened. Okay, guys, good chat.